I was pretty done with comic books by, I don't know, 74, 75.
Yeah.
I think I still read things like Vampirella and Mad Magazine, but I was also reading Playboy and Hustler and High Time and Rolling Stone. I found them much more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I found Mad Magazine. It's just like that other thing we're going to be talking about. You didn't even. The female was just mentioned, so I had to look into it. And I searched the internet and I looked into it. The female, if I had read what it was talking about, that's what I'd been looking at. I'd be interested in her and her best girlfriend, because a lot of times it's the best girlfriend that's the best.
Well, okay, so let's we'll jump track for a minute too. So you talking about the alien entry I sent you?
Yeah, we started off with that but got off track.
Okay, well we can touch on it if you like. So what? Tell me about the alien species you read about.
What, you mean the hunters?
No. I thought that's what you were talking about. Were you talking about you read the entry on the aliens?
I was just talking about in the scope of things.
Okay.
So, it's a weird world.
Get more mileage on a cheap pair of sneakers.
Well, there was a time I always liked, just like your grandfather, I always liked Lincoln. Okay? But when I was with the firm, sometimes for firm use, I would rent Lincoln Grand Marquis.
Mm-hmm.
And what I discovered was some of them were just as nice or nicer than the Continentals.
Yeah.
So why spend that extra cash?
Right.
It has to do with branding in the name. And, of course, I don't give a crap about that stuff. I mean, you don't see branding or tags on my car.
Yeah.
All right, let's get it started.
One thing that was weird with Star Wars is you used to have all these movie serials and the older sci-fi movies, 50s and 60s and stuff. And those had a fair amount of play on TV, repertory theater, that kind of thing. And one of the arguments was that Star Wars was so good at taking the B movies and turning them into A-list entertainment that it kind of killed the taste for people watching the old serials and stuff. And I think that was kind of true with Indiana Jones as well, although it doesn't get talked about as much. But I do remember some of those serials running on like Channel 20 when that got started and such. Did you ever watch any of the kind of the shows that inspired Indiana Jones?
Just a minute. I know this. I just got to think of it.
Because to some degree, he had stuff.
There's only one thing that really Indiana Jones came from one place. My mind will get it just a minute.
Well, I was thinking you're probably thinking of Alan Quatermain.
That's right, Alan Quatermain. I read the novels.
Mm-hmm.
So the minute I saw Indiana Jones, I knew who that was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the two little movies about Alan Quatermain.
You're talking about the ones with Richard.
With Sharon Stone.
Yeah, but
yeah, Richard. Yeah, you're right.
But give me what's his name? Thornbird. So Richard. No, not Richard. Dr. Kildare.
That's right. Get your phone out.
Richard Chamberlain.
That's right, Richard Chamberlain.
But those were later. They did Alan Quatermain movies before that, didn't they? Didn't they do black and white ones? Or they did King Solomon's Mines as black and white, right? As I recall.
There were some movies, I think they were in the 30s.
Yeah.
But there's only a couple of them.
Yeah.
But it all comes from the novels.
And how many Alan Quatermains did they make, novel-wise?
You know, I don't remember. It's just like, you know,
were those designed as books, or were those like serialized in newspapers, or what were those?
No. They were novels.
They were novels. Okay.
I think there was a funny paper. I don't know where all it was shown.
Oh no, but I mean like, you know how they used to run stories in newspapers and stuff, or you'd have like dime novels and stuff, or you'd have the anthology magazines and such. I was just
well, you know that dime novels came before my time. Even
sure,
though,
you're right. Yeah, I know you're an old man, but you're not quite that old.
My time was when comic books were a dime.
Right.
In fact, some of them were a nickel. It just depended on what they were. But Alec, you see, I read the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew and Alex Quatermain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, I really discovered serious reading when I was about 11 years old.
Yeah. But was there like a whole series of these things, or was it just a finite amount?
It was a series. I mean, it's just like now. I'm always waiting for the new Clive Cussler to come out. Mm-hmm. I've read them all, you know, and there's several other authors like that. Some of them are not necessarily a series. They might be about like a group, and there's different parts of the group, you know. It's usually some government something or another, you know, these days, but like when I was an adolescent, Sergeant Fury was one of the things I read. Mm-hmm. But there was, I don't know how many novels there was. I mean, it seems to me they weren't that many, like 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. But I can't swear to that. I just know I read every one I could find in the library.
Yeah.
Okay? So when I saw Indiana Jones, I knew exactly who it was. Mm-hmm. And that was part of the great part of Indiana Jones, is how similar yet how different it was. Mm-hmm. You know, Alex Quatermain, they didn't go into so much his past and everything. I mean, they did to a certain extent, but I mean, you know, like his father and how, you know, Indiana Jones dealt with a lot more of the history right from the get-go. Mm-hmm. You know, and then
because Quatermain was a hunter or an archaeologist.
He was a hunter and an adventurer. Okay. Which did kind of make the movies different. Mm-hmm. You know, but see, that was a big thing. You know, you got to remember that society changes. You know, it's like when I was in my 20s, you know, in the very early 70s, you know, I was still a teenager when I came back from Vietnam, and I'd been gone for a long time. And I mean, one of the things that just gobsmacked me is how much things had changed. You know, like I didn't know who the Eagles were.
Right.
And they'd been around.
Yeah.
You know, I was gone. You know, we got some new music and stuff. But I remember I was into B.B. King and Ike and Tina Turner, and I was still, you know, I love the Beatles and James Gang and all that stuff that I was familiar with before I went into the service. And I stayed with that, you know, Chicago, Blood, Sweat and Tears, all that stuff. And I remember when I got back to San Diego, the first time I was in an enlisted club, and I walked in, and they were playing Horse with No Name, and they played it a lot because it was kind of a big hit. Yeah. And I'm listening to the song, And I'm trying to figure out what this son of a bitch is about, and I'm also trying to figure out, do I like it? And I, the Eagles had several songs out at that time, and they were playing those that night. I had no idea it was the same group. Okay, so that relates to what you're trying to get at, Anyway, I recognized Indiana Jones immediately as Alex Quatermain. And really, their dress and everything is not that similar. Alex Quatermain wore a safari type style hat, and Indiana Jones wore a short brim fedora. It's just like I have a bunch of fedoras. Most of mine are large brim, and I've got this one Stetson that was actually custom done for me, and it's a gun club Stetson. And I had them re-brim the hat. It's got like a 3 3/4 inch brim, which makes it closer to something like Alex Quatermain would have worn.
Right.
Okay. But I remember I've owned that hat for 30 years, and I would go places and everybody would scream, "Hey, Indy!" They thought it was silly me wearing that big hat. But it's nothing like Indiana Jones hat.
Yeah.
In fact, I've got one fedora that is a fedora, and it's got about a 3 1/4 inch brim on it. And it's almost the same color as his. But it's a completely different kind of hat. People don't notice anything about fedoras. You got the teardrop style crown on a fedora, but you also got the pinch brim. There's like 3 different styles of fedoras. Okay, if you look at my Panamas, they're fedoras, and they have 2 different size brims, and they have basically a teardrop style crown, but they're not the same. People don't notice that kind of stuff. So when I saw Indiana Jones, I noticed that. You don't see Indiana Jones wearing a vest. And Alex Quatermain wore a hunter's vest. His clothes came from Abercrombie and Finch. Indiana Jones' clothes came from, what was it? Because he wasn't from Indiana. He's from like Illinois, right?
I'm not sure where he was from.
Nebraska, that's where he's from. Okay. His clothes came from Nebraska.
Well, and they're eclectic too. He's got kind of a bomber jacket kind of thing.
Yeah, he's wearing like a bomber.
He's got a regular t-shirt. He's got slacks,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. And he's got a short brim fedora. And, people in the early 60s, there were men still wearing those style fedoras. I mean, a bunch of my relatives wore them. So, but that's not what I've got. But somebody sees this massive brim hat I got, and they, I guess because the front pulls down like that, it must be Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
It's green and his is brown, but who the hell cares?
Yeah, Indiana Jones, Crocodile Dundee, same guy, right?
There you go. and Crocodile Dundee, he was rougher than either one of them. Okay. But if you wanted to compare him to somebody, you'd have to compare him to Abercrombie and Finch. Indiana Jones is not a hunter.
Yeah.
And I know why they did that, because in the 80s, it was a big deal. Starting in the late 70s, there was a push about wearing real fur and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, nobody ever thinks about, it's also what the fedoras are made out of, right? All of my fedoras are real hair. In fact, one of them is actually made out of hair. But I've got one that's made, in fact I got two, that are actually made out of beaver. That's what they're supposed to be made out. A lot of your Western hats, are the most expensive ones, are made out of beaver because it's the most durable. You know, you don't see me putting plastic on my hats when it starts raining because I don't gotta.
Yeah.
They're not made of felt. They're made out of the real deal. And so was Indiana Jones. But hunting was out. See? So they, you know, Alex Quatermain, even when in the Alex Quatermain movies, he didn't do any hunting.
Yeah.
There you go. It's a matter of what they think they can pass off to the public.
But tell me this, before Raiders of the Lost Ark, what serials they did have? You said in the past you watched serials, but was that more just generic adventurer type situations as opposed, like you would differentiate that from the Indiana Jones material? Or do you think?
Yeah, because the closest thing to that would be like Tarzan.
Yeah.
You know, Tarzan had those. I watched all those series.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid and you'd go to the Saturday matinee, they still played that crap from the 30s and stuff, and we thought it was great. You know, a lot of that Three Stooges crap were kind of, they were different kind of serial. They were more like a cartoon.
Yeah.
But they played that crap at the movie house.
Yeah, I mean, and it ran on television through the 80s. You know, it wasn't until the 90s that you really started to see all the black
they're
white stuff.
playing it on. They play.
Yeah. But
in fact, I think last night they had a Larry thing on one of the channels that ran about 4 or 5 hours.
I just don't know how much terrestrial broadcasting gets watched anymore, though. It's like it's not really something.
A lot more than you would think.
Maybe, but I'm not sure. Like kids, I don't know if the kids are watching it. Is what I'm saying.
I don't know. You know, if the parents aren't buying the cable, I guess they are.
Yeah. Well, a lot of stuff gets watched on people's phones, on YouTube, that kind of thing.
Look, you can see right there, the guy's got a big direct TV disc on his roof.
Right.
Okay. I've got a great big D antenna, and if you drive around, you'll see more and more of those. I probably was the first one in town that I've had that thing since they first enacted it. I ordered it, and you can still get them like from Antenna Direct or whatever, but it's held up real good. You know, and I get like 68 channels.
Yeah.
Hell, I have to go through the channels because you know they shift all the time.
Oh yeah.
This morning I discovered that they shifted them on me last night, and this morning I had to rerun it. And you know, there's about, I don't know, 30 channels that I got to edit out.
Yeah.
You know, I've never seen so many bad preachers in all my life. You know, and you talk about bad programming.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll get some old gal up there with sound like she's got a 6th or 7th grade education trying to tell me where my soul is. You know, you got to edit that stuff out.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there actually is one Hispanic station I like to watch. but all
Eye candy?
Huh?
Eye candy?
They have some of that, but they have enough bad stuff on there. It's just funny as hell. And I understand enough to follow some of the simple stuff. But the rest of it's got to go, you know? And I still don't understand the Spanish stations that play English programs. That really escapes me. But I keep a couple of those. But some of them have just got trash on them. I mean, there's like 3 that call themselves crime and 2 that call themselves mystery. You know, and some of the stations are the same station. They just got 2 different names. Okay, and I keep both of them in case, because I know if I turn to it and the channel's not there, then I can go to the next one and watch what I want to watch. So I keep those in. But there's a lot of channels I've got to edit out every time I run it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't cost me a damn thing. Not a damn thing. And I mean, I'm watching stuff like today. They have one of them marathons. Columbo. Now, these TV stations that play in the last couple of years of Columbo for a decade. But this marathon, they starting at the beginning going through. So I'm recording every bit of it, you know. And people talk about that. We were just discussing that. I got DVRs. If I want to use them, I can use them. And I'm still, you know, I still got videotape machines.
I was wondering if you still use the videotape.
You bet. They are the easiest in the world to use. They beat the crap out of, you know. I've got those machines. I bought a bunch of them that I can record on DVD as well as VHS. The problem with that is you can't get as much on the DVD. When I put when I put the VHS in, I get 6.5 hours. And since it's digital, even on that slow speed, it's clean. It's not like back in the old days where it was a little bit glitchy.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's so all you do is pop the tape in there, punch the button, and leave.
Yeah.
You know, kind of make a memory note. Look, at midnight, I need to change that damn thing. And if I'm awake, I will. Oh yeah, I've seen. You know, the big. I don't. When it comes to reality TV, I really don't like it. Okay, it's just too phony. Even the stuff I do like is kind of phony, but they're doing something I find interesting. So I have seen all of American Pickers, all of Pawn Shop. I think I've seen all of the other channels, the Louisiana Pawn Shop, and all Accounting Cars, and all of American Restoration. And as far as I know, the only one that's still going is the American Pickers. But I've seen all the ones they're showing now.
Yeah.
And I kind of hate to see it go. I mean, I love it. You know, you got it on record, right? And I'm watching a TV show. Commercials are particularly bad these days. And when a commercial comes on, I turn on the VHS. And you can time almost different channels do it a little bit differently, but basically they all go to commercial at the same time. And the commercial length is about the same. And it depends on what part of the show, how long the commercial segment's going to be. And I can sit there and watch another show while they're doing commercial and turn it off. I miss the commercials, and it, you know, it's great. It's not as good as fast forwarding through something, but it's good. So, and 6 hours of VHS lasts a hell of a long time when you're playing it on the commercial break. But yeah, I use it. I don't know what I'm going to do because I've got a bunch of good VHS tapes, new old stock, but I think people have bought up the new old stock.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people still using that system. You know, I was using beta long after, and it was better.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says, it was better. But compared to VHS, if you compared VHS to high definition, that's about the difference between beta and VHS. And I knew it. So I used it until that machine crapped out. You know, the only advantage I saw to VHS was the run time and the tape size. Those were the two advantages to it. As far as picture and sound quality, it was no contest. But yeah, I've got a bunch of machines that have VHS tapes, and I still bloody well use them. Now all my movies that I converted to DVD early on. I would never buy I see that all the time, like on Amazon. They'll have a VHS tape and they want $300 for it. And I'm going, why?
Right. I do not understand VHS collection. I can kind of get it in terms of like the boxes, if you want to display like the big clamshells or something. But in terms of actually watching a VHS tape, the quality just isn't remotely comparable. And every time you watch that thing, it dies a little bit more every time. So the quality deteriorates a little bit more every time. It's just like, I don't know why you would want to actually run a VHS tape.
Well, one of the things people didn't understand is you can take care of VHS. I've got, I converted a lot of stuff to DVD, but I do have a box. The stuff's still around in a box somewhere, and I'll guarantee you I could put it in that machine and see it today.
Yeah.
But people don't understand. You do now. If you put it somewhere where there's too much moisture and all, I mean, let's face it, it's rust you're recording on.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to deteriorate.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when I bought all that new old stock before it was all gone. You have to take that stuff out of the box. Now it's been sealed up real good, but that doesn't mean there's going to be perfection.
Mm-hmm.
That tape is not designed to sit like that for that many years. So you got to put it in the machine, run it forward, run it backwards at high speed to make sure it's not going to stick on you. And then set it out to make sure it's good and dry. Then when you play it the first couple of times, like you say, some of it's going to come off. And even though you can't maybe see it on your machine, you better clean those heads before you do have a problem. So, and that's usually what goes wrong with a good VHS machine. Them damn Panasonics, they're like tanks.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that early on when I had reel-to-reel tape recorders.
Mm-hmm.
They back in those days, they might not be as good as a Sony or a Sunsai or a TIAC. They may not be advanced or as good, but they were built a whole lot better. Panasonic and Wallensack, the German brand, both of those, they were just tanks. They would just last forever. And so a lot of my equipment, most of my equipment is Panasonic.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some Pioneer because they're better at no region.
Yeah.
And just like VHS tapes, you got a lot of British shit. I can get it a whole lot cheaper from Britain than I can get the American stuff.
Yeah.
So, I buy an extra DVD machine that's no region, and I can play the crap out of that stuff. And I don't have to spend the extra money. And there's nothing illegal about it. I'm not doing anybody harm. So what the heck? But it's always amazed me. I can get something for $2.99 from Britain that they want $24 for here.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll buy a movie that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'll want something like 40, like Ruger Hauer.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted something like $49.95 for a Ruger Hauer film here, and I got it from Britain for like, I don't know, $4.
Mm-hmm.
How do they do that crap?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not like China where everything's subsidized to run us out of the country, but because Britain, they have all that high taxation, and let's face it, the pound's worth more than the buck.
Yeah.
And I know because stuff on my bicycles I buy from there, I don't get any deal on. I pay a lot of money, but I can't get that stuff here. I have to buy it from Ireland or somewhere else in Great Britain or Germany or Italy, whatever, to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the bike places here don't sell it.
Yeah.
And car things are like that too. I'll go to buy a car part, but I've got stuff that I had to buy overseas on my car because you can't get it here.
Mm-hmm.
And it really hacks me off because it costs me more money and I have to wait a long time to get it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a fact. I know you have fun editing this shit.
Let's see, where were we? So you read the Alan Quatermain books.
Mm-hmm.
But they went a different way with Indiana Jones because they probably a slight nod to 70 sensitive guy. They show him as a teacher, they show him in classes, they show him dressing nice before he gets to be the rugged, manly man when he's out in the field.
Yeah, he's kind of they mixed him up a little bit, absent-minded professor. And since when was Indiana Jones sensitive?
I'm saying in terms of him being when he's in the school teacher, where they let you know that no, he's not just a rugged guy.
And he makes his students run and chase him down for any kind of help whatsoever.
Well, there is the inference that it's maybe a little bit of a...
he's supposed to be a man of the 40s.
Yeah.
Well,
30s.
Well, yeah, more, both really, but... yeah, because I mean the World War I stuff, that was the 18s. That's even before that. And unlike a lot of movies, you weren't seeing a prequel.
Mm-hmm.
In Indiana Jones, the timeline. So actually, he's around pre-World War I and after World War
no,
I.
I mean, it's World War II. So I think that the first movie is sometime around 35, 36, somewhere in there. Because it's prior to the U.S. engagement in World War II, but I think the Nazis are already... Well, clearly the Nazis are present because they're...
Well, okay, wait a minute. Now, first off, they don't make a lot of mention of when it was.
Right. But the fact that the Nazis active...
It was, what... The Holy Grail. That was the fourth movie, right? Or was it the fifth?
The Holy Grail was the third one.
The third movie. Okay, that tank was a World War I tank.
Okay.
Okay. The uniform that they were wearing was World War I.
But that was a sequel to Raiders, and Raiders took place with the Nazi Party were still in ascendancy.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So it might have been he's probably using an old tank, but
yeah, it's like these Civil War cats. The South will rise again on a cold day in hell, maybe. Yeah, you're making a valid point, because I know the other ones were World War II or after World War II. They were going into the 50s.
Yeah, by the fourth one they were in the 1950s.
Yeah,
which is why they used the communists instead of the Nazis. By
right.
That point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what brought you saw the movie theatrically? I assume.
I saw the first three movies theatrically, and then everything else I used DVD. I mean, I got a 60-inch screen. Why should I bother with the damn movie?
Yeah, I still haven't seen the fourth one.
I've got it.
Yeah, I haven't been in a rush.
But I mean, I can get. I mean, I'm not a real big fan of Blu-ray, but it's the only way you're going to get 3D, and my TV can. I can put on the glasses and get real 3D. None of this 4H.
So they shot that one in 3D?
Huh?
They shot the last Indiana Jones in 3D?
No, the point here is when you've got a room that at its furthest end is 14 feet, and the furthest I can be away from my TV is about 10 feet, and it's a 65-inch screen. I mean... It fills my peripheral. And what is it? I mean, I don't see the point of going to the movie theater. I've got the sound, I've got the picture. It's ridiculous. The only reason why I would go to a movie theater is if I thought I couldn't get that experience at home.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are things.
Yeah.
There's probably... we used to go all the time to the American History, the Natural History Museum for their IMAX. And I have bought some IMAX, and I do think that you probably get more off of that big screen than you get on mine, but I guarantee you the sea snakes still swim past your head. So, but yeah, I used to love it because it's so big. You get that feeling that it's completely around you. And So
Well, that when you're in a movie theater full of people, it can distract you from that experience of feeling like you're within this space.
yeah, you're looking
Because
over
yeah, I mean, it's 3D when you're looking directly at the screen before somebody turns on their phone to check for their Twitter pings and shit. But it kind of takes you out of it. Where if you're at home within your sphere, then it's probably more immersive.
You're telling me it's bad enough that you see the shadow of their head,
Right.
and you're telling me dummies are going to the movie,
yeah.
and
Sometimes they're talking on the phone, having a conversation on the
I'm
phone.
telling you what, I would walk out of there and tell them I'm never coming back.
I've had some pretty bad theatrical experiences that involved ushers. Yeah.
That is not worth my money.
Yeah.
If I got to put up with that, the hell with it.
Yeah.
And I know kind of basically what it costs to go to the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So
It depends on what time of day and what kind of show and everything. But if you're trying to see a 3D movie in prime time, you're definitely getting into the teens and 20s.
I never do that anyway.
Yeah.
I can remember even when I was a kid, I wanted to try to get the girl out early, so I'd have more time with her.
Right.
And it was a lot cheaper to go to the movies.
At the matinee, yeah.
Well, that, and you could, I mean, it's not just the matinee. Once you got in there, you own the place.
Right.
You could sit in the back of the theater or the back of the balcony all day long, swap and spit if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Same, you know, when we used to take your sister and the youngest the oldest, now they're the oldest grandkids. But we used to take them to the Natural History Museum and to Moody Park. You go the first show because most dumbasses won't get up to go to the first show. It didn't cost you any less, but you had IMAX to yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, it used to be you go almost anywhere, the zoo or wherever. If you got there early enough, it was almost, you know, back in my day, if you went to the Herman Park Zoo, like during a weekday or something, you were the only people in there. Yeah. You had the whole zoo to yourself. I know it's not true because we've been there with the great-grandkids. Man, there's almost a day you can't go in there and be shoved off the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But the kids still like it. I mean, I like it less, but they still like it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if you got up on Sunday morning and took them, you know, which we did do one morning, there's far fewer people there. Mm-hmm. You know, you better get in and out of there in an hour or so. But when you first get there.
Yeah, I definitely think pre-church Sunday would be your best bet, you know, these days. Maybe midweek, early on midweek.
I can remember riding the Herman Park train and I was the only person on it.
Yeah.
You know, and that was not that unusual.
Yeah.
You know, just because I got to go early. So.
Well, it's just playing a lot more people at this point too, you know?
No, well, you got to remember that Houston in my day was tiny by comparison.
Right.
And what you could do was tiny by comparison. Mm-hmm. You got to remember, I was pretty much a teenager before Astroworld even came into being. Yeah. You know, and it was one of our big places to go. Mm-hmm. And I can remember, and I'm telling you, this is a fact, even in the beginning of the 80s, nothing was open late at night. You could go to a concert, a theatrical show, a club, almost anything. But when you got out, nothing was open. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had like Dutch kettles that were open 24 hours, and there was a diner downtown that was open 24 hours.
Did you have Waffle House yet?
Huh?
Was it too soon for Waffle House?
There were Waffle Houses, but they were more out because they had too much competition. You had Dots, Denny's, and Dutch Kettle. Mm-hmm. Now, Dutch Kettle is comparable to Waffle House, I guess, and it was open 24 hours. Mm-hmm. I mean, even a lot of the Denny's and the Dots weren't open 24 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember being a young adult, and just so we'd have something to do, we'd go down to the Hyatt Regency and ride the elevator. Yeah. I mean, that's what a hoppin' town Houston was. You know, times change. We don't have an Astroworld anymore. Hell, we don't have any kind of amusement park that I know of anymore. But there's a hell of a lot of things to do in the middle of the night, and a lot of places are open.
Oh, yeah.
So, but that didn't come about until like the late 80s.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, another thing people used to do if they didn't have a lot of money is they'd go to Nico's down at the Montrose, because it was all glass, and park in the parking lot across the street and watch the gays through the glass. I mean, that's the kind of place we lived in.
Yeah.
So, you know, they actually did roll up the damn sidewalk. I mean, at the time you were born, TV hardly ever went past midnight.
Oh, yeah.
Channel 13 from time to time would have like a late show and the late show. And they would play that until they didn't get the right numbers on whatever. And then they'd go back to, you know, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, something like that. And the national anthem came on.
Yeah.
You know, I worked second shift for a machine shop. And so when we got off, it was like 11:30 at night. And we'd have to go to somebody's place and sit there and hang out with the same people we were working with, because everybody else was in bed asleep and there was nothing else to do.
Yeah.
You know, and you couldn't buy beer, you know. I mean, people don't, nowadays, they don't, the after you were born, we still had blue law. The thing is that just like today, you know, we live out here in the country, and the people's clocks out here are different than they are, say, in Houston. These people are used to getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, it's a common thing. And we've got like a 24-hour Walmart. You know, it's 17 miles from here, but it's here. There are probably more people shopping in that Walmart at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning than it's in there at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And if you're going to go shopping in there, that's the time to go. Because, I mean, we've got 3 Walmart, but that's the good one. And you better be there, you know, as far as I'm concerned. Because I tell you, you try going at 9, 10 o'clock, and they're going to run over you. You're going to have dings in your car. You know, you're not going to be able to walk down the aisle, and there's a good chance they won't have any stock. And COVID, it only got worse. If you wanted to buy, through about half of this COVID crap, if I wanted ground round or ground sirloin, the only place I was going to get it was Walmart. And I better damn well be in there before 9 o'clock in the morning, because there was people going in there buying everything they had. You know, and nobody was stopping them.
You still got some seriously inflated prices on beef and poultry right now.
But that's a different
limitations in stock too.
That is completely different.
Yeah.
because there is a limitation on supply now. What I'm talking about is the hoarders.
Yeah.
And these people out here, they may not have a lot of education, but they got plenty of money. They work in the plants. You know, they don't suffer the same. You know, I suffered during the 80s and Reaganomics. I suffered that mess. But out here, they didn't suffer that mess. Them people working in the plant, there wasn't a bunch of layoffs and stuff. You know, these people, they get out of high school, and within a year or two, they're making $140K. So you think about that in terms of you and your education.
Yeah.
You know, you make a pretty good living at what you do, but you don't make that much. And these are people with a high school education, you know. I made about that much when I was at the firm. There's a big difference in education, and I felt damn lucky. And they take it for granted, most of them. So, you know, some of them, they got 3, 4, 5 freezers in their garages because they go hunting for everything under the sun. I mean, a lot of these people, you take these people that make $16, $17, $18 an hour. A lot of these people spend what their salary is, their annual salary, on their hunting season. That's the mindset you're talking about. So, why the hell are we talking about this?
I gave up on renting you a long time ago. I just was letting you go.
We're talking about Indiana Jones.
Were we though?
We just settled the fact that he was of World War II into the 50s.
Right, and we were talking about where exactly you saw it and what motivated you to go see it in the theater.
Oh, that's what run us out, is talking about going to a movie theater and spending all that money to be frustrated.
Yeah.
Well, let's get off of that crap. Let's talk about the damn movie.
Well, okay, but why'd you go see the movie?
It came out when?
81.
That was when I was in the business, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I think I was in the business.
If so, you were there for a long ass time, because
because I worked
the one time, because a lot of times you think that I went with you a bunch of times when you were stocking the concessions and shit, but that actually only happened one day. One Friday you picked me up. I think during a summertime.
No.
And we went all around doing the concessions.
Son, that only happened one day.
Right.
But you went to the movies.
I went to the movies with you all a fair few times, but that was still, you were talking, okay, because I can carbonate it pretty easily, because the movies I saw that day were the Monster Squad, the Untouchables, and I want to say I saw a little bit of Living Daylights, but I checked the time frame and it doesn't seem like that was likely. But I was going back and forth between the Monster Squad and Untouchables.
Yeah, but there was a lot. Yeah, but the issue was where you lived.
Okay.
And when you could be with us.
Sure. But
it's like when I found out, when you were 16 and you left. Well, it doesn't matter. I think you were 16, and you were living in Pasadena with some people, and I didn't really know what was going on. But I'd picked you up then. We went to go see movies for free, and I can't remember where we went, but there was a lot of weekends. At different times, we went to see movies.
Yeah. Like I remember seeing the several, at least Nightmare 3 with y'all. I remember seeing Beetlejuice with y'all.
Mm-hmm.
There were a number of movies, but the point being is this was like around 87. So if we're talking about a movie in 81, either you were at that job for a long ass time.
No. It was different jobs, son.
Okay.
I worked for a company called Blevins Popcorn.
Okay.
And they were a nationwide concessionaire.
They still around?
No, they sold out to Rico's, the same place when I worked for P&P Concessions.
Yeah.
P&P Concessions was part of the old tier car that pretty much owned every damn theater in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly they owned every damn drive-in in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But they also owned all the big theaters here. And they leased them out to other companies, okay? Like the Windsor, the Galen, the Sharpstown, the Sugarland. I mean, there was a whole bunch of the theaters. But then they were one of the big boys that said, we're going to cut the third guy out and have our own concessions company.
Mm-hmm.
And that was P&P Concessions. But I didn't go from Blevins to P&P. What happened is Blevins went under. And then I went to work for a concrete company. But I had interviewed with P&P Concessions, but they didn't have any job openings. And a few years later, I get this call. Are you still interested in working with us? And at the time, I was out of work. And I said, hell yeah.
Again, suffering under economics.
Altogether, I worked for concessions companies about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just not sequentially.
Not sequentially, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and one of those jobs was my longest running job, about 3 years of all my jobs in the 80s, Reaganomics. And what happened was companies were eating other companies, and like both those companies, separated by all that time, were bought by this Dallas company called Rico's.
Right. And since they're gobbling each other up, you've got these redundancies, so they start laying folks
That's
off.
the first thing they do. They didn't keep anybody.
Yeah.
It's just like that concrete company. Our main competition in this town was another big concrete company. It still exists, okay? And I don't know if the company I work for still exists, like in California or somewhere where they were home based. But here, and I know in Louisiana, the one that still exists. that I love that job, but it didn't last 2 years. You know, that was the name of the game. I mean, it wasn't because I wouldn't go to work, and it wasn't because there was business. The companies were just sold out from underneath me.
Yeah.
And I know in the case of the concrete company, only one person survived.
Yeah.
Only one. And the general manager, two. The general manager and the warehouse manager were the only two people that survived, and that's because that other company did not want to close down our company. They wanted somebody there. So the warehouse manager became the manager, period.
Right.
He was also the primary salesman, you know.
Yeah.
He did everything. He answered the phone and did everything so nobody would know who they were really doing business with.
Yeah. Okay. So you were working concessions when Raiders came out in '81.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
And so, do you remember who you saw the movie with?
I think we saw that movie at the Galen Theater, and I think it was your brother and your cousin.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Same ones that we, you know.
See the movies later on in the decade.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, for me, I still don't know which movie theater this is. You might be able to help me with this. There were a few theaters that we tended to hit very often. There was the AMC out at Alameda. There was Gulf Gate, because I remember the bridge very clearly, and it was always kind of cool to go over the bridge.
Yeah, it was a cinema.
There was a dollar show out in Pasadena. We went to a lot, but I saw.
No, the one in Pasadena was a cinema too.
Okay. Well, most of the '80s it was a dollar.
Yeah.
show.
See, we had all of the cinema theaters, and but we also had a bunch of the independent.
Yeah.
I never took you to one of the.
Well, this isn't you. I didn't go with
Oh.
you. So the only time I remember.
I think one time you took me to the Captain.
El Capitan?
Yeah.
I never went to the El Capitan. I don't think I ever saw a movie there. I know that it existed. Fix It has been to that one a number of times back when it was still operational. I don't think I ever did the El Capitan though, because by the 80s, I think they were showing Spanish movies anyway. I'm not sure though, because they weren't around long into the 80s. Because by '90, they were shut down. I think.
Somebody took me to the El Capitan. And I'm pretty sure it was in the 80s. I just can't remember.
Yeah, because I don't remember. I really don't remember it being operational. But if it was operational, I think it's strictly Spanish language movies by that point. So you saw the movie. What did you guys think about it?
Thought it was great.
Yeah.
Again, it had something that you never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a female actress that I thought was hot.
Karen Allen. Yeah. Yeah. Had you seen? Yeah, I'm sure. What did you know her from prior to that movie, or was that your introduction to her? Like, did you see Animal House, for instance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else with her, or was it just one to the other?
You know, that was so long ago. It's like the first Alec Quatermain movie.
Right.
And I know where I saw that. It was at the cinema in Pasadena.
Same here. I saw, if I remember correctly, I saw both of the Alec Quatermains, but I definitely saw the second one. I want to say, I think I saw the first one maybe on cable or something, because I'm not confident I saw that in the theater, but I know I saw the sequel because it was weird to see just the sequel. And it was definitely a cheap jack.
If you'd asked me, I'd say that was one of the movies you went with us. And
I saw that with Stepfather and Mother. I remember
well,
that. Yeah.
Anyway, that's where we saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually one of the first theaters in town to have it. And what got my attention about it was Sharon Stone swinging on that. They had a stand-up.
Okay. Oh yeah, standing for the theater.
And she's swinging. It's Alex Quatermain, and she's swinging like on a vine or something.
Uh-huh.
And her leg was sticking out there like she was barefoot, but her leg was shapely like fuck me heels. and I had to see it just because of that.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it thoroughly.
And this was the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a fan of Sharon Stone then? Or just
I
in that
was
movie?
then.
Yeah. Well, like I know she really blew up in the '90s, for instance. So I don't know if that was if you followed her into that stuff or if you just.
But
liked
she
her in
did a
the
lot
80s.
of stuff that wouldn't have interested
Right.
me. Okay.
You're not a big thriller guy, for instance. You're not a big thriller guy.
No, I don't. A lot of suspense I don't like, and the thriller stuff. It's really the adventure I go for because it's mindless entertainment. I don't have to sit there and figure out who done it or what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Hit me with it, baby. You know, it's just like that movie we were talking about that I just saw, Danger. Now, it had a lot of suspense in it, but you're
enjoying the twists. And,
it had a character that could carry it.
Right.
You weren't so wrapped up in the suspense as you were this character that you're studying, you know. You have an aunt that's a sociopath. She's not a psychopath, but she's a sociopath. This guy is a psychopath, you know. It's not something I want to associate. I don't want to know one.
Right.
You know, I can't say I ever knew one, but I might not necessarily know it if I did. I've known a lot of sociopaths. You know, they're pretty easy for me to spot. But
my brother's supposed to have had those tendencies too, from what I understand. When he at that camp for that reason?
Camp?
Yeah, remember when he was in that juvie camp after the fire?
He didn't go to any juvie camp.
I thought he was in that little like troubled kid camp or something.
No, he got prosecuted for a break-in.
Okay.
When he was with his mother.
Okay.
I didn't have anything to do with that. That was in the summertime when he went to be with his mother, and I don't think he spent any time. Maybe he had to go to a boot camp or something. I don't think.
I thought he had seen a sociologist who diagnosed him with some tendencies.
As far as I know, the
because he had pyromania too, right? Or elements of pyromania.
Yeah. He went to, and I think it still exists over in or wherever it was. One of those child psychology places, but he didn't have to sleep there. Mm-hmm. We had to go like for family counseling or whatever. Because I know he didn't go to a boot camp. He had to.
It wasn't a boot camp.
He had to go.
But he spent.
It's still. I think it's called.
Oh God!
And I think it still exists.
I remember that shit used to get advertised all the time on daytime TV.
Yeah, as far as I know, it still exists.
Yeah.
That's where he went.
He was one of those Maury Povich kind of bullshit.
Yeah, his
things,
mother's insurance paid for it.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
You know. And as far as I was concerned at the time, the attorney shouldn't have done such a good job of defending him, because I was afraid that, that happened after he set the plumbing on fire in an abandoned house. Mm-hmm. That was, hell, they were practically the house next door, and I was the one that pulled him and that other punk out of there. But whatever, it was some kind of breaking and entering, because I never did get the whole story. Mm-hmm. I met with the lawyer, and the lawyer told me he was going to get him off, and it didn't matter what I thought, that was his job. and it was particularly bad because the lawyer was a friend of mine. But he was right, that's what the law is. I didn't have any say-so.
Yeah.
And but yeah, no, that was the result. He didn't even have to do probation, I don't think. All he had to do was go to, and we had to take it. It was a ripoff. Whoever paid for the place, that's who they said was the good parent. And in this case, his mother's insurance paid for it, so she was the good parent. I said, okay, well, next time he burns something down and he's with her, you let me know.
Right. Well, I know he was staying there for a period of time, several months, because
he stayed.
Because while he was there, he had all my G.I. Joe size figures, Star Wars figures, that kind of stuff, and they got stolen while he was there from other kids.
Son, you do realize that he's a liar.
Okay. Well, this is the version that
at least he was then.
This is the legend, regardless of any.
I'm telling.
So he ended up giving me his He-Man size figures to make up for the loss of all the other G.I. Joe and Star Wars figures.
Son, I'm telling you, that boy never did a boot camp. He didn't go to jail, and he.
But I went to the place. I went and visited him there a few times.
I just can't say. You got to remember.
I was out of this is not my circle. I would drift into these circles for brief periods of time and then drift right back out again. So I've never got all the story. I don't have a lot of perspective. I have what people told me. That's what I had to work with.
This is the thing.
And as you point out, my brother isn't necessarily a reliable narrator. My cousin isn't necessarily a reliable narrator. So it's like I only have one. His mother
is a pathological liar. And, your brother lied more than anybody I've ever known through omission. Okay? But I know that he was a liar. He didn't bother, because I always caught him. So there was no sense lying to me. I knew how I was as a kid, so I didn't trust him. So I was always on top of him, unlike my parents who were not. All I know is that he got in trouble that one time with the law. It was during the summertime, okay? And it was even, let me see, it was this summer before he turned 17. Okay, now his birthday is in the wintertime. He turned 18 in the wintertime, and I sent him home to his mother, on a weekend like. And he told me he wasn't coming back. Now, he was 18. There was nothing I could do about that. I was off the hook, and, so I let him go. And, it wasn't long. He met some girl he wanted to marry, and he was back on my doorstep wanting a hug. I said, fine. But he wasn't living in my house. Mm-hmm. So, but nobody ever told me. All I knew about was stuff. So if there was another place, I didn't know about it.
I don't know. It might all have been the same. Like I said, I kind of took it as it came.
Well,
I did not approach these things with a critical mindset. I would come over for a weekend, whether it was at your place, grandmother's place, his mom's place, whatever. And I didn't go there very often. I only actually remember ever staying the night over there like one weekend, maybe even one night. But I would drift into these orbits. I would take what was told to me uncritically. I would govern my own, actions, my own behaviors, but otherwise it was just like, okay, well, if you're telling me that's what's going on, that's what's going on, and I just kind of took it as it was.
I realize how things might look to somebody like you of your age bracket. Mm-hmm. His mother was always around. I mean, I had 2 wives, one of which I'm still married to, other than her, and it wasn't until the break with your brother that his mother quit being a nuisance. Mm-hmm. She was always over at your grandmother's house as if we were never divorced, and even trying to get in my britches between wives. So, and lucky for me, I wasn't one of those fools that fell for that crap, because the woman is nuts. She ain't right in the head. So, but part of what's wrong with your cousin and your brother is the fact that the interference of their mothers, in other words, not following through with punishments, not following through with watching them, that's the problem with them. And they got away with a ton more than I ever did. And I never had any.
My perspective is it was more the extended family. There'd be a rule at a given person's house, mm-hmm. and then they would go to the family house, which was always a chaotic scene, and that's where the murders would take place. That's where the things, like you said, there wouldn't be a follow through, or you were told they're supposed to do one thing and then they would do another
also
thing.
Happened like your cousin. Mm-hmm. He would go to the sociopathic sisters. Mm-hmm. Okay, in her mind, she was the only fit parent. And the reason why she didn't have any trouble.
The one who didn't have any kids.
Yeah, the one that never had any kids. But she got along fine with because she let him do whatever the hell he wanted. Mm-hmm. She took him to buy whatever he wanted to buy, and all kinds of other things. Took him to movies or whatever he wanted to do. So in a way, she was more of a friend than an aunt. And so in her mind, you know, she didn't have to deal with his schoolwork or any of that crap. And then, like you said, he'd go to your grandmother's house. But he also went to his mother's house, where he was just allowed to do whatever he wanted to do.
Well, and broadly speaking, pretty much all the kids had quote-unquote broken homes, too. So there's already that clash between two parents that weren't necessarily living together anymore. And then you add in this third element of the family, the extended family.
But son, maybe maybe you could say it was too many people in the mix.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a lot of people that got caught, like with you and your mother and stepfather and that kind of situation, where you get dragged all over the country, and they go off just as nuts.
Oh yeah, no, I absolutely don't dispute that. I
mean, look at your uncle.
Oh yeah, no disputing that. And I'm not kettle calling pot black or anything like that. I'm saying that you basically had this familial border town where there'd be certain rules in the household, and then they'd get in with the family house, and things would kind of go
as long as it was in my house.
That's right, yeah.
There was control.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And then as soon as you go to the family house, shit starts to get
and to some extent, I had control in your grandmother's, but
as you pointed out, there was always somebody there to undermine you or to offer an alternative avenue to doing what you'd been told, essentially.
Well, and you know, the last 3.5, 4 years he lived with me, he had mama.
Yeah.
And she loved him, but you know what? She has to have rules. If they ain't rules, she makes up rules for herself. And she always took his side over your sister's.
When you say mama, do you mean your mama or grandmother?
Mama in there.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Trying to distinguish.
Well, I mean, other than your grandmother, you told me once that you kind of saw her as mama.
Right. No, but I'm just saying, there's a lot of mamas involved with a lot of children.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to keep it straight in my head which one we're referring to.
You know, she has her issues, but, you know, she loves kids, and she, you know, if you're halfway decent, she treats you real decent. You know, your brother-in-law, over here, he told me once he saw us as his parents.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of like one of our adopted kids and my son-in-law.
Yeah.
So, but you know, that kind of stuff didn't take with, and I think to some extent is a sociopath. You know, think about it.
Well, and that's what I was saying, is I think that was an actual diagnosis that he had gotten, and so that was something that he was conscious of. And as he got older and as he had children of his own, that he was trying to make sure that he backed away from some of those tendencies, or was aware of those tendencies.
Most of it was to get even with me and prove I was wrong. You know, he hates me.
Yeah.
So, well, his mother, you know, the one thing you told me, we don't have to go into this, and I know you're not going to use it, but you told me.
I'm going to make sure to take out some names, but it's up to you what we use or don't use.
I don't care. You told me once that your mother did something to her best friend.
Sure, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Okay, his mother, she is like that. When I say she's nuts, she's criminal nuts.
Right.
Okay? And, you know, she was adopted and her brothers were adopted.
Right.
And all of them were nuts. They all did jail time, you know? And it wasn't the fault of their adopted parents, because they were social, upright, nice people, conservative people.
Yeah.
And conservative in the real sense.
Right.
I don't know about their politics, you know, they were Catholic. But they were pillar stones in their church, you know? They believed in the Bible and believed in doing unto others. They were kind, hospitable people, but they could make a penny scream. You would have loved them. That kind of conservative.
Right.
You know, they were Czechoslovakian, and they knew real time. One of them actually came to this country to escape concentration camp.
Right.
So they understood that stuff. And they also understood that you had to save your money because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But those kids, they went to private school. They had nice clothes. They didn't have to. They didn't have to ride in a nasty old car. I mean, her parents. I mean, he owned his own business, and so you know. But all those kids that were adopted, they came from Nutsoid. It was a genetic thing. It was obvious to me.
Yeah.
You know. And as far as
I mean, there does seem like there's a little bit of an element of refugees adopting refugees, and there being some trauma there that plays out.
You know, I don't view beauty. Sometimes I think I view it differently than a lot of people. Mm-hmm. You know, you can have a frumpy chick. You know, kind of boring, a little bit plain looking, wears older clothes, that kind of stuff, and then when the clothes come off, you know, it's like the little librarian or whatever,
right?
And you know, if there's a certain passion there that only one man might know about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's sexy.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that's attractive. Then you have, what do they call it now, the full figure girl. Mm-hmm. You know, there's some of the sexiest women on the planet is full figured. Not maybe necessarily the way they look, but they try harder. You know, a lot of them try harder to be like super female.
Yeah.
You know, that's attractive. You know, that's something that's attractive. You know, a guy likes a girl to look at him like he's a piece of meat. I realize women don't necessarily like that, but I think
we like to be objectified.
Guys like to be objectified by women. There are guys that go through their whole life wishing they were objectified by. It's a different standard.
We all want to be Al Bundy washing the car.
You know, yeah, I remember seeing that. I remember once my second wife. You know, I thought I was pretty hunk of good change, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I thought we made a good looking couple. And there was an ad on TV that this guy with his butt in some blue jeans. Mm-hmm. And I asked her, I was sitting there I was in the bedroom. I think we were getting ready to go out somewhere or something. And I asked her, I said, well, what do you think of my butt? And she says, well, it's kind of broad.
Oh.
And I go, what? Yeah, it's kind of broad. It doesn't poke out so much. It's just kind of wide. You're a big guy. You know? And I said, well, I work out all the time. She says, I know. I can feel the muscles, you know. But, you know, we're discussing your ass, not your muscles. So I realized right then I didn't have the ass that girls were looking for in jeans, mm-hmm. And it kind of wavered my ego a little bit, right. You know, because I really thought, you know, I had the stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so it's definitely a double standard. It's just like, you know, I've got all these kids, and you know, men. They can say whatever they want to say, but if somebody tells them they're 16-year-old, or he catches his 16-year-old boy getting him some, his chest kind of comes out, you know. He starts getting a little cock of the walk. Yeah, that's my boy. But if it's his daughter, he turns into a monster.
Yeah.
He can't stand it. He wants to kill somebody.
Yeah.
It's a double standard.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm liberal about that kind of crap. You know, but still, your sisters, shit. You know, I was always checking on them. But you know, it's like your brother was sitting there watching TV with me and Mom in there, and we're sitting there watching TV, and this isn't the one he married. This is the girl that came, but she's kind of cute.
Yeah.
And after they left, you know, we were all hugging and nice and all this stuff. You know, he was like 17. Mom looks at me and said, "You sat there and let that happen." And I go, "What did I let happen?" His hand was up her skirt. I go, "I didn't see that. They were sitting right next to you." You know, and I'm sitting there going, you know, I'm worried about my brain, you know, what I notice and what I don't notice. It takes me 10 or 15 minutes for all that to sink in. And I got a grin on my face. You know?
Good show, boy. Good show.
Well, I mean, you know, it takes some cojones to do that in front of your parents. So, you know, I'm not trying to be a philosopher about it, but it's a fact. It's just like they've got this new formula. Okay, it's not so new really, but I mean it's been around now 20-something years, whatever. Where what the formula is I don't care whether it's vampires or what it is. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, all these. Basically, they take a soap opera for teenagers and they throw in a quest, and it's always a never-ending quest. It never ends.
Yeah.
They and 9 times out of 10 they don't even make any kind of headway.
Yeah.
What it's really about is teenagers in love and the silliness around that, and all these obstacles of Romeo and Juliet. Really boring stuff. And it's hard to ask somebody like me about that because, first off, I've got great grandkids that are going to be teenagers pretty soon.
You're right.
You know? So what do I care? You know, been there, done that.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of stuff. I mean, it's on cable. I was watching this cable show. I think it was on Christmas, and it was you know, one of those. I don't think it had any dragons in it, but you kept looking that dragons were going to come into it. You know, some medieval nonsense. And basically, what it was about was people's emotional silliness where romance and position and all that comes into it. It's boring.
Yeah.
But I know it's really popular. I was just trying to figure out if it was because I couldn't really see how it translates to teenagers. So maybe it was something for tweenies or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, a lot of this stuff is formula. I'm always trying to explain formula to friends of mine who don't really get in. You know, I'm a car guy, you're not a car guy.
Yeah.
Trying to explain what it's about, you might get some of it across, but the truth is you don't care to begin with, so who even knows you're listening? You know, if you don't say something somewhere down the line that you realize that you said something that sunk in, you don't even know if they're listening. So, and almost all these films and movies and TV shows are formula. They got a basic formula. You got a hero, you got a bad guy, you got somebody to defend. And most of these writers always write the moral in there. It's not necessarily about the outcome. It's about how they conduct themselves through the whole thing. You know? And of course now you do have movies every once in a while it comes out where everybody's a bad guy, and it's just a matter of who's not the worst bad guy.
Or in other words, why I like Pulp Fiction and you don't.
Yeah, what do they call it? Anti-hero or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. And some of those are all right. You know, some of them are, there's been people like Clint Eastwood that did those movies. And you know, they always get, you know, high fives for it, you know, because they didn't do a formula movie. They went outside of the box.
Yeah. High Plains Drifter comes to mind.
You bet. Yeah.
Yeah. That's about as anti-formula as you can get.
There you go.
You're watching a revenge flick, and you think you're building up to the big revenge, and the revenge is the whole damn movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just watched. What's it called? Macho. You heard about it? It was just released to DVD.
Oh, right. Cry Macho. Right?
Is that what it? Yeah. Okay. All right. Maybe it is Cry Macho. Which is in relation to the teenager that's in it. Okay. It is a formula movie, but it's because he's really not a hero-like person.
Uh-huh.
He just acts like he'd always act, and the kids along for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, you still don't know whether he's done a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
But he ends up with the girl and a bunch of kids. And it was, to tell you the truth, I probably would have lost interest in the movie, but the Mexican woman that played that, see, she's one of those. She looks like she might have been attractive when she was, might have been sexy or whatever when she was younger. And now that she's middle-aged, which is, somebody my age, a woman like that is pretty hot, okay? She's middle-aged, he's ancient, I mean, how old is he now, 88 or something?
He's up there, yeah.
Yeah, and he's not playing anybody any younger,
yeah.
He's conducting himself like he can barely walk through the movie. And he's got this hot Mexican woman wanting him to be, Papa. You can't beat that. Even with the kids that come with it, you can't beat that.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically he don't have to do anything with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
She just wants him around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always been the number one quality that I desired in a woman. That I was desirable to her.
Yeah.
If that wasn't the case, I'm not going to lay a bunch of phony lines and chase some woman around the parking lot. She's got to want me first.
Yeah.
And for a long time, because of the way she was brought up, she got away with hiding the way she was. But the woman is vicious. She'll set two men together just to watch them beat each other. Did so many times. Hell, I was one of those guys. Of course, I always came out on top, and then she'd fuck my brains out, but, what the hell? I mean, that's the one thing she had going for her was, she'd fuck my brains out. But I digress.
So which one did you like better, Alan Quatermain or Indiana Jones?
I don't.
No, just enjoy it.
Look, if Alex Quatermain had kept going, I would have followed him.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't have a third sequel. As far as I could tell, when you read about them, both those films were successful.
Yeah. Maybe Chamberlain just didn't want to do it anymore,
I don't know. I didn't.
But your grading is I like it, I didn't like it, and you liked them, and you liked Indiana Jones movies.
Look. Yeah. Okay, first off, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
If another actor came along and wanted to do Alex Quatermain as written, I would.
Well, actually, another actor did come along, Sean Connery.
What was the movie?
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He played Alan Quatermain in that.
I said as written.
Okay, I'm just saying though he was
Alex Quatermain it was kind of like the Avengers. They jam all this stuff up like it all happened at the same time.
It was infamous because that was adapted from a comic book. And the comic book was very true to the literary roots of the characters. As you mentioned, it was kind of like the Avengers, but the literary Avengers. And he actually read the books and reflected the books, and then of course they made that movie where they just threw all that shit out the window and just kept some names.
But all those characters came from different times.
Right, and infamously, Sean Connery stole the master print of the movie, locked himself away, and edited it himself, and it was the last movie he ever made. That one had some issues. I mean, he quit
No, I
acting after
love that movie.
I know, but like you said, you don't recognize Alan Quatermain in that movie, though.
Yeah, that was just it was like a comedy of errors. You know, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love the way they added tons to Jules Verne.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in some places they did exactly like the book, and then in other places they went so totally off script it wasn't even funny. You know, I mean, just the time period. They had a car from the late 30s in there. Okay. But the character in the submarine was from the 19th century.
Yeah.
You know, hell, all the characters, they came from different time periods. But
I know they used Mina Harker's vampirism was how she managed to be in that time period. I don't know about Nemo and Alan Quatermain, if they were stretched far apart or not.
They showed. Oh yeah.
I've never read the comics and I've never seen the movie.
Look. Why don't you just look? I mean, buy one off of Amazon or go to High Price Books and find one. That stuff is cheap. I'll bet you and Alex.
This isn't selling me. Yet nobody wants it. You can buy it for cheap. That's not selling me on the movie.
I'm not talking about the movie. I'm talking about read one of the Alex
Quatermain books.
Novels.
Okay.
You know?
It's probably public domain. It might actually be available online.
You know, it's like right now.
Because that shit was what, early 19th century or early 20th century? I mean, or early late 19th century?
It's 20th century.
Yeah. What are we talking about? Like, they made movies in the 30s.
Look, it's been a long time
right?
since I read one of the novels, but I think it was 50s, 60s.
No, because they made movies in the 30s, as I recall.
I'm talking about some of the.
Oh, some of the books were from the 50s. Like the series continued on for
either that
like,
or
Tarzan
I got a reprint from the you know, because I got that stuff out of the library, but I'll look it up and check my facts.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is that I read the damn things, and at the time the movie come out, I knew about it. And you know, we're talking about Indiana Jones. I recognized it immediately as kind of an Alex Quatermain thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when it comes to books, right now, I've read all the good adventure books. I mean, there's a couple of more I haven't read. You know, Clive Cussler died.
Yeah. They've continued it with the Ghost Rider, though, haven't they?
Well, and there was stuff he started, but you know, he always a lot of his novels, you know, his name's on them, but they were ghostwrited.
Yeah.
You know, and he shows them as co-writers on them, but his son was even working with him. Okay, and of course his son inherited all that stuff, I'm sure. Anyway, there's two novels right now that they want about $25, $26 for.
Mm-hmm.
And I all you got to do, my experience is wait a few months. I mean, one of them I don't even think has been released yet. But you wait a few months, and then you go to Amazon and buy it used for $4 or $5.
Do you ever hit the library here? Do they have a library? They have a library.
Yeah, they have a library here, but I wouldn't go looking in the library here.
Yeah. I mean, I would think that Cussler would be like a populist writer that would have some traction potentially here.
The library's not that big.
Okay.
I mean, I technically I still have a Houston library card, but I'm satisfied with waiting.
Having your own copy.
But you know, my real love, after I read everything as a youngster, you know, was I got into biographies, and I read every interesting biography to me that was interesting. I mean, stuff that's happened during my lifetime I don't find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I just found this book that's been reprinted, and it didn't really start out as a book. It was an extension of a report done about slavery. Mm-hmm. And it's a collection of retelling slave stories from their perspective, from their own words.
Right.
And I've been reading that. I think that's a great thing. It's hard to read.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you see all these shows, you know, where, you know, like you're you're watching a western, and they may speak country or whatever, but it's a language you understand.
Where the antiquated vernacular would be such that it'd be very difficult to even like make progress in a book without having a dictionary.
Yeah, they would probably understand you a lot better than you'd understand them.
Right.
And this book is written in a vernacular of like 1867, 1868.
Right.
And it is kind of hard to follow. You know, so
well, it's kind of like how there's a lot of technical jargon that translates well between English and Spanish because they're both Latin derivative. And so when you're using highfalutin words, sometimes I can catch what they're meaning, but if you're using more common language, then it's more, I don't have a common ground anymore. But if you're using like fancy words that are Latin derivative, I can actually pick up on words in Spanish because of the shared lineage.
Well,
So the point being is like some of the highfalutin words I might catch, but some of the more common words might not be accessible to me. And like you said, vice versa, they might catch more than we would catch. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, occasionally this guy like uses yays.
Yeah.
You know, ye.
Yeah.
And like in different you know, in some languages, if you compare it to American language, they kind of tell it backwards. They're saying it sounds like they're talking in reverse. Mm-hmm. Like they start with the noun.
The structure is different than you'd expect.
Yeah, it's a different structure. And this thing's full of that. And it's kind of hard. In fact, when he uses the slave's exact words, I understand that fine.
Yeah.
You know, that's old time Southern black that they're talking. You know, it's him when he's like describing them, or talking about the people of a certain town. You know, because he's the one that has to tell you. You know, you take the slave story. I go here, I go there, I do this, I do that. And he's got to give you the context of that. And so it's interesting. And it's not such an easy read. Because, you know, you may have to read.
Like sentence-wise, it's difficult, but also subject-wise, it's difficult. And, yeah.
Well, yeah, because you're trying to understand what the guy is saying. And some of those terms just aren't used anymore.
Yeah.
You don't hear them. But I'm reading that, and I'll get to those Clive Cluster books.
Yeah.
You know, I'm probably finding them at half-price books before I can get them on Amazon.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't care if they cost me. You know, I'll pay $12, but I'm not going to pay $27.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
You don't pay $27 for a damn paperback.
Yeah, especially if you've got patience.
Huh?
Especially if you have patience.
Yeah, I mean, you know, waiting for these movies doesn't bother me in the least. I watch GMA. I know that some of these movies I'm waiting 2 years to see. So what?
The truth is, nowadays, you're more like 45 days, 90 days. Like
a lot of times they're on DVD as soon as they hit the theater.
Yeah.
But some of these, I mean.
I think I'm gonna cut this because it's about to die. I think its battery life is probably just about dead. So stop.
There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There were sand and hills and rings. The first thing I met was a cloud with a buzz and a sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry and the air was full of sound. 21st century boys at Black Moon, Andre TFG, Dr. Ash, Between the Planets blog, Canoes, Chris Badless for the Beginners, Chris Leffler, Chris Lighton, Debache, Dear Watchers, a Marvel What-If podcast, Del Dracula, Doc Strange, Ed Moore, The Hammer Strikes, E.T. Stuff and Voiceover, History of Comics on Film, It's Plastic Man, Jeffrey Brown Made Them, Keith G. Baker, King Dinosaur, Lucretia, Maxwell with Resolutions for a Bit, Mike gave it to me. P. Randy Caldwell, Resurrections of Thanos and Warlock Podcast, Submilla, SkyX, Tim Price Podcrasher, and Wacky Bronze Silver Comic Book of Villains. We got a few comments on the Resident Evil episode, doing a rather long strip by Jeff Brown, but since we're probably going to be covering the first Resident Evil movie sooner rather than later, I figured I'd just save it for that. Keep it thematic.
But
I hope it is.
you know, Marvel has just become a disappointment.
That and the formula. They've just beaten their specific brand into the ground at this point. So yeah, I have a real tough time watching any of those movies, and we haven't been covering as much.
I mean, you know, I just don't understand when they do good coming out, you know, and they have, you know, what, 6, 7, 8 movies in a row that are pretty good, and then everything else is just crap. I know. I get the DVDs. I wouldn't. And most of the DVDs I get is from the Red Box. I don't pay but like 65 cents. You know, because I'm on their mailing list. I get all these discounts.
Yeah.
And you know, I've seen a couple of them where I almost think I got ripped off at 65 cents.
Which ones have you really disliked?
Oh, I don't know. The one I just watched was Venom.
Okay.
It was okay, I guess.
Did you like the first one?
Yeah, the first one was all right. You know, it was fun, and they were doing something different again, I felt. But this one that I just watched, it just seemed to be kind of disconnected. You know, and the character, you know, well, and the whole thing about separating from the bodies and being switched and all that stuff, it just didn't fly with me.
Yeah.
You know, the great thing about the way they presented that first one was the comedy of it.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed the comedy.
And it's like they weren't even trying in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, they were doing stuff that I guess was supposed to be funny. And maybe it is. You know, I understand one of my great-grandsons thinks it's awesome. But, I mean, I don't even know that many. I don't know how many parents nowadays are going to, you know, let a 10-year-old watch that.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, I found that movie pretty damn disappointing.
So is that the worst of the most recent Marvel movies you've seen?
Well, it was the most recent.
Okay.
Okay. But that second Avenger movie where Loki comes back, I didn't think that was so great either. And mostly because of Loki. The character works. Well, I remember when I read them in the comic books, you know, Loki was always, I don't know, I guess part of it is, you know, studying anthropology and archaeology and stuff. You know, they're stealing all those Norse gods to begin with. So,
well, they're not really doing them. It's always funny to me when you got these guys who try to talk like what Marvel's doing is the North myths, where they just went off into their own thing basically and just borrowed the names for the most part.
And some of that,
like they had a video game recently where they unveiled the video game's take on Thor, which strongly resembled the myths,
right?
But it didn't look like Chris Hemsworth. So all of a sudden, all these people were like, "That's no
well."
Thor.
But you see that whole line. Norse line. I was never a big Thor fan anyway.
Yeah.
The
myth or the comics or both?
No, the myths are interesting from the point of view of what they represented. You know, they were. I mean, you can compare them to a certain extent to the Greek gods. the pantheon of the Greek gods. That stuff's interesting because it affected history.
Uh,
And it affects archaeology and anthropology. So it's interesting from that point of view. Some of the sculptures and representations, some of the old stories, they're interesting. One of the first books, real books I ever read, I was 11 years old and I was going to military school. And I read the Iliad and the Odyssey. I read a lot of books. And one of the things I was always looking for was a story that good.
yeah.
It was great. You look at a lot of the movies that were made about that. And most of them are pretty low budget. In other words, their budget was so small, they had to steal. There's no copyright,
Right.
so they can do whatever the hell they want to.
Yeah. Well, just the other day they had the Lou Ferrigno Hercules movies on.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. What made those movies good was their low budget and how bad they were. But you're not talking about that. I mean, what's it cost to go to a movie theater these days?
Yeah.
They want me to pay that kind of money when I feel like 65 cents is too much?
Yeah. Yeah. But you were talking about Loki and the Avengers movie you didn't like.
Look, the character is boring. The whole purpose of killing Loki was he was a no good shit that
When he brings down an army of aliens to indiscriminately destroy and kill people in New York City, the redemption arc ends there because you can't redeem yourself after you've done that kind of thing.
And a demigod needs to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Why
do you need to redeem the villain? I know he's a popular character, but he's the villain. Let him be the villain. Don't feel the need to make him, but he felt really bad about it. No, I don't care if you feel bad about it. You did it. You can't walk that back. Women and children were killed by this dude, and then all this stuff going on in New York. Don't try to act like you can walk that back. You can't. He's a bad guy.
But I mean, you take like Star Trek, all that stuff. They use all kinds of Jewish stuff in there, like Vulcans.
Yeah.
Because they knew that. I guess they knew that Bradbury knew that.
Roddenberry.
Yeah, Roddenberry. Yeah, well, they say he was racially sensitive, and I guess he knew that these so-called white Christians, they hear all these Jewish terms that most Jewish people would understand, and
they don't get it.
Yeah, it'd be alien,
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a lot of chuckling on the set about some of that stuff, but anyway.
Well, especially with Nimoy full Jew, Shatner part Jew, so you'd think that they.
Well, Nimoy was a Jew.
Oh yeah, he's full on, yeah.
Yeah. I used to have a friend years ago that hated Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why he hated Star Trek is because they kept bringing the people back to life. And he says, you just can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work.
It renders things meaningless.
It renders everything meaningless. If there's no consequences, then why should you get excited in the first place?
Right.
Now me, I'm not so critical.
Mm-hmm.
I let a lot of that stuff. If I went critical, as much as I study astronomy, and I understand what it takes to, like intergalactic. A lot of people don't even understand what that means. The intergalactic means you can travel within your own galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
You're restricted to your own galaxy. Well, in space, as far as the universe that we know exists, our galaxy is a grain of rice at best.
Well, see, I thought intergalactic meant you traveled beyond your galaxy, where intragalactic would be within the galaxy.
That's what
I thought intragalactic would be within one galaxy, where inter would be across multiple galaxies.
Well, maybe I'm wrong about that.
Okay.
But if it is, even I would have a hard problem with that.
Because it's just too broad of an expanse.
The distances and the speeds, even if you find these wormholes, I really like that show Farscape. And there's, you can name any number of Buck Rogers or whatever. They always deal with wormholes.
Deep Space Nine is based around a wormhole.
There you go. Okay. So you have a wormhole. Even with a wormhole, you have a point A and a point B. So even if you use that as some way to get from one part of the galaxy to another part of the galaxy, it